You're listening to Emerson Witner's NXT Report on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
It is Thursday, February 19th, 2015, and this is your NXT audio update exclusively here on AngryMarks.com. I am the one and only Emerson Witner, formerly of the written NXT Report, recently of the audio version. I am also the co-host of the Wrestling Outsiders podcast, and welcome to yet another fun-filled week of NXT. For those of you who may still not know me, as I mentioned, I am the host of the mildly successful Wrestling Outsiders podcast. We do have our live show tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern with part 1 of the history of WrestleMania. Also, our past 45 episodes and counting can be heard on blogtalkradio.com/wrestlingoutsiders. It includes pay-per-view recaps and interviews with some great people, including Brian Alvarez, the one and only Stevie J, R.D. Reynolds, R.J. Brewer, and Antonio, the Promise, Thomas. If you also want, you can follow me on Twitter at TheReallyRealEW, or follow my podcast at WO Podcast. Now, with the cheap plugs out of the way, let's get on to NXT. Of course, this was the first show after last week's NXT TakeOver Rival show, where Sami Zayn lost the NXT title in his first real defense to Kevin Owens, and William Regal, NXT General Manager, opened the show backstage, saying that while Kevin Owens is the NXT champion, he will not be able to call his own shots, he will not be able to make his own rules, and tonight starts a new era on NXT with a main event of Kevin Owens versus Adrian Neville in a non-title match. After the opening credits, the champ is here, the new champion, the new king of NXT is out to dueling chants of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. The Owens fans were a bit louder than the Zayn fans, I'll tell you that. Kevin cut a brief promo saying that the people who are mad about the way he won the belt have no right to be mad at him. Ever since he arrived, he never lied. He said he would fight anyone and everyone to make things better for his family, which is what he did by winning the title. Who he beat and how he beat them is irrelevant, referring to Zayn as the past. Owens is now looking to the future, that being the new number 1 contender, Finn Balor. Owens told Finn to just pick a date, but promised Finn that he will do the same thing to him they did to Sami Zayn. Our first match, we had our first big surprise of the show. If you read the spoilers, this wasn't a surprise, but, you know, Rhino returned, former ECW, WWE, TNA star, returned to NXT of all places, and defeated Elias Sampson in less than a minute with a gore. The whole match was 2 moves. It was a belly-to-belly overhead suplex and then the gore, and Rhino picked up the really quick win. Finn Balor was backstage and said that Kevin Owens does have a high opinion of himself, but so does Finn, and he will fight him any place, anytime. Rhino walked up. Him and Finn kind of glared at each other, and Rhino walked away. We had a battle of my 2 favorite entrances on NXT as Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy defeated the Vaudevillains. They're building up Enzo and Colin for a tag team title match against Blake and Murphy, and had them go over the former number 1 contenders here. Enzo and Colin are still incredibly popular, while Carmella is not. She remains the only person in this trio to be booed, and they will not sing along with Enzo when he introduces her. Enzo, I never been able to understand Enzo's in-ring gimmick. Enzo almost never hits an offensive move, or if he does, he immediately gets cut off, and he almost always gets pinned very, very quickly. This time, at least, he kicked out, Enzo did pick up the win over Aiden, but that was after Colin threw Enzo into Aiden and then kicked English's head off. Wesley Blake and Buddy Murphy showed up on the big screen, cutting a promo on Enzo and Colin. I still have no idea which one is which, but the one that doesn't look like Paul Burchill hit on Carmella, and so Carmella gagged and pretended to vomit. Made me think of Bray Wyatt allegedly vomiting during the dark match on Raw on Monday. By the way, anyone want to clue me in on which one's Blake and which one's Murphy? I'll be happy to hear you out, and hopefully I'll try to remember which one's which. I still think it's just the Naturals on steroids. No one remembered which one was Stevens, which one was Douglas. No one knows which one's Blake and which one's Murphy. Just one kind of looks like Paul Burchill. Jeremy Borash's younger, non-bug-eyed little brother, Greg, last name, interviewed Adrian Neville about his match. Adrian is still the only person that's ever mentioned Greg's name, so that's how I know his first name is Greg. What's his last name? Dang if I know. But until then, I'll steal a 30 Rock joke and say that last name is his last name. Adrian said he's kind of relieved that he did not win the number one contenders match last week because now he can be the hunter after a year of being the hunted. He has not forgotten about Owen sitting out on a stretcher the last time they wrestled a few weeks ago. Bayley cut a quick promo promising to win the women's title, and then we got a Becky Lynch promo promising the same. My favorite segment, for completely different reasons than most, happened next. CJ Parker came out, and he's sick and tired of the fact that he was not on the TakeOver show last week. He hates all the people in the arena and all of NXT. And CJ announced that he's now going to be holding the show hostage. He had some police line do not cross tape, and he started wrapping it around the ring ropes when we suddenly got static interruption. Captain Midnight appeared. My brother's favorite wrestler, Solomon Crow, finally debuted. Solomon Crow, the former Sami Callihan. And Solomon ran down, beat the heck out of CJ, and cut a promo, returning us to our regularly scheduled broadcast. Now, those of us who have listened to my brother go on and on for the past year plus, whining about when will Solomon Crow debut, you should all know that at the moment, when Solomon Crow finally debuted on NXT, my brother, who this morning made sure to repost the picture of him and Sami Callihan at WrestleCon from a few years ago, my brother was sleeping instead of watching his boy finally debut. Old Blue Pants wasn't wearing her rosebud dress this week and instead got to submit to the queen, the love of my life, the women's champion, Sasha Banks. And so, yes, my girl beat Ed Laredo's good friend, Leva Bates. And that's your Sasha has changed her Titantron. Instead of whatever it used to be, it's just, I don't want to say a still photo, but it's, the shot of Sasha from last week holding the belt up over her head and just playing that over and over and over again. Old Blue Pants still has Colin Cassidy's intro and Colin singing of the Price is Right theme as her theme. Sasha basically laughed at the idea that Blue Pants would be her opponent and held the ropes open and ordered Pants to leave. But, yes, I just called her Pants. But Blue Pants replied by kicking Sasha, and she'd get a little bit of offense, including getting a 2 count off of a backslide. Jason Albert was concerned that all of Sasha's adrenaline from last week may have worn off. Personally, I would have been very concerned if Sasha's adrenaline from last Wednesday night was still pumping and going here a week later. Sasha won with a bank statement, which for those not paying attention is basically the crippler crossface, only without hooking one of her foe's arms. Greg, last name, got into the ring and asked Sasha what it meant to be champion. Sasha said it means everything, and it meant that everyone, including Becky, Bayley, and I wrote Sasha, but Becky, Bayley, and Charlotte would have to admit that she's the baddest diva on NXT. And personally, she'll of course always be my queen. Dr. Chris Amon said that Sami Zayn had a CAT scan after last week's match and it came back positive, so he did let Sami go to Abu Dhabi and wrestle on the tour last weekend. What doctors these WWE guys are. Even in kayfabe, they sound like jerks. Main event time. Kevin Owens, Adrian Neville. Depending on your personal taste, this match was just as good, if not better, than the Sami Zayn match last week. This match had a dual purpose in not only getting Kevin Owens over as a killer, but showing to everyone who is not an ROH fan and hasn't followed Owens in Owens in ROH, just what a tough guy and a great man he is. And Owens kicked out of one big move after another, including Neville laid him out on the floor and then stood on the apron and hit a 450 splash, but got a 2. Neville deadlifted Owens off the mat and hit a German suplex, which just looked amazing. He got a super kick and backwards Hurricanrana for a 2. Neville did go for the Red Arrow, but he rolled through and wait because Owens started rolling out of the way. And when he stood up, Owens laid him out with a pop-up powerbomb, giving Owens the victory. Neville did, by the way, hit a beautiful top rope moonsault to the floor. I was kind of expecting him to smack his head like Zayn did last week, but nothing of the sort happened. And like I said, I thought the match was just as good, if not better, than the Zayn match from last week. And so that was it. Nothing was announced yet for next week. They're building to a couple matches here. They're building to the tag match with Enzo and Colin versus Blake and Murphy. They're doing a slow build for Owens and Finn. I'm thinking when they finally do that Owens-Finn match, I'm thinking Rhino's going to turn heel. Something's just telling me. They seem to be still building, if not another 4-way, then a 3-way with Sasha, Bayley, and Becky Lynch. And we'll see what goes on from there, especially with Solo and Crow. And will we ever find out Greg's last name? I don't know. Hopefully we never do. It's just a running joke on the show. But that's going to do it for this week. So I'm like 5 minutes introducing myself, and then I reviewed the show for like 7 minutes. But, hopefully you enjoyed it. I am Emerson Witner. Tune in again next Thursday, or, listen to my show on Blog Talk Radio. Good night.